So when you guys were okay, again, I'm not trying to put you guys on the spot. I'm just curious. You know, you're hired to edit this film, Francis Ford Coppola's film, big star cast, everything. And as an individual yourself, as an audience, you start putting it together as time passes by after dailies, and you have like a scene or a chapter or two chapters, and you start watching it. Did it ever occur to you guys, each of you separately, like, where is this going? Is this something that's going to be appreciated by audience? Anybody going to watch this? Just, as an audience member.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I remember reading the script to be candid and being somewhat baffled by it. Um, and even to the point where, you know, there was a long period of time in sort of the gestation period before the shoot, and Glenn had been getting scripts well before, like years and years and years. So he's been a part of this for much longer, but you know,
Right.
working with Francis and sending him notes because he would send the script out to a lot of people. But you'd spend a lot of time considering um, where to, give him a note and where to kind of wait and see how things go. But obviously, it's like a roadmap in a way. And at certain points in the process, it was like, I don't know how this is all going to come together, but I have faith in Francis and I have faith in the process. And so to get to the point of shooting the material, um, it was always an endeavor. And as we were building it, and because it took so many turns tonally and I think when we got to shooting, the script was actually pretty locked in for, day to day, with the exception of, something that would come up on set or a location issue. But when we got the material, it was kind of like as scripted. But then, of course, I think it changed a ton in the edit.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, because one of the things that I think Francis did, it wasn't an easy read because he only gave you, and much like the film is, you only get these little snippets of all these characters. You don't get an actual plot line that you could sit there and map out on a piece of paper and go, this happens and then this happens and this happens. And it kind of, a lot of things are all sort of happening at once. And so he didn't want to make it too obvious what was happening so that you would keep the mystery going. But it was a hard read. It definitely, I've had to read it every time I got the script. I had to read it twice and mark it up the second
Yeah.
time, kind of follow it and go, okay, he's cut this out now. Oh, he's moved this over here. Okay, we have a new character. Oh, we've cut a whole character. It was a real thing to follow. And about a year before he got into pre-production, he called me up and said, hey, can you take the first 3 pages and just go to YouTube and set up this scene of this movie? Because every time I try to explain it to somebody, they don't get it. And I was like, oh, well, how do you do? And so I read the first 3 pages, and it had this stuff about the satellite, the Russian satellite, and it had stuff about the mayor and the black mayor that had just gotten elected, and it had stuff about the trash not being picked up in the city in debt, and it had all this stuff about Caesar having won the Nobel Prize and developed Megalon. And it was all kind of like little almost like bullet points. It might have only been 2 pages, just bullet points of what was going on, and to set the scene. And I remember just like going to YouTube going, oh, fuck, how do I try to create Megalon? And I found it's actually the woman scientist that he had also been talking to I didn't realize it, but she had done stuff with silk, um, building silk kind of structures using, silkworms to create their own, you know, solid material or, stringy material, and then wrapping it into shape. And she did these beautiful things in an art gallery that were like 15 feet high, and they were still growing as the silkworms were still eating. So I grabbed that off of YouTube. I grabbed a guy that I didn't know it was going to be Adam at the time. I think that was before they got Adam. It was going to be somebody else, but I grabbed somebody that was getting a Nobel Prize and put that in and got some old satellite footage and just stuck this whole thing together. And he showed that for a long time to a lot of people, including a class that he sort of taught that summer, where they went through and did some readings through the script. And he told me later, because I showed that to everybody just to like, so I didn't have to keep explaining it. They could just watch this 3-minute, 4-minute thing that I created. It was really funny. So that was just an intro to how he was still kind of creating it and changing things around pretty close to the following spring, when he did start really locking it down, and then pulled one big character out and gave some of that character's attributes to Shia's character. And that actually really glued the film together, I think, when Shia took over being the banker that another character had been in the script. That really, I think, made it a much more cohesive. And again, what you were saying about the second half, because you know what's going on with Shia as well as Wow, you start to feel that it's closing in around uh, Hamilton Crassus's character, and so you get to know, you feel like there's a plot developing, whereas in the first half there's sort of like 4 plots developing, and they all sort of come together partially because of some changes he made in the script, which I thought were great in the spring.